My name is Mahagony Jones, and this is my Interpersonal Communication Project for Human Services 508 at Liberty University. Taking this course has helped me gain tons of internal knowledge on the process of communication. Communication is the essence of our being, so it is inevitable and a skill that we must acquire. Stewart in Bridges Not Walls tells us that communication is a continuous, complex, and collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meanings. With that said, communication is like an instrument that requires tuning over time. Introduction to communication. Communication is defined as the exchange of thoughts, messages, or info by speech, signals, writings, or behavior, while interpersonal communication is defined as the type or kind of communication that happens when people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. We cannot not communicate. Communication to me before was just talking. After taking this class, I see it as more of a process and something that can truly define and enhance your life. Communication is who we are and not just something that we do. Stewart also reminds us that there is a direct link between the quality of your communication and the quality of your life. Having an overarching goal is imperative so that you may know what you want to achieve and how to achieve it. My overarching goal for communication is to improve my listening and focusing skills. Burley Allen gives us several recommendations for improving the skills. One is to refrain from being critical. A second is to be attentive to the underlying meaning. Don't try to solve the talker's problems, just listen, and carefully time your questioning. My second overarching goal for communication is to speak more effectively, in a manner to which I can get my point across easily. A third overarching goal for communication is to self-disclose properly. Self-disclosure is a great communication skill. It allows the real you to shine through. And lastly, my overarching goal for communication is to practice, practice, practice. This is an art, and it cannot be learned overnight. It takes dedication and persistence. These goals will help enlarge my conversation and enhance my communication skills dramatically. Enlarging the conversation. When we understand how to communicate, we can enhance our skills by seeking to fix that which is weak and initiating conversation with others for improvement. Enlarging your conversation is simply understanding who you are as a person, which is revealing your identity, and being able to decipher who others are. We were instructed to take a Discovery Health assessment. On this communication assessment, I scored an 87 of 100, which means I am an excellent communicator, but without a perfect score, there's still room for improvement. This is me. Taking a Uniquely You assessment, I learned that I was a DS or SD personality type. This personality assessment measures your personality type. With this assessment, you begin to better relate to the insights and instructions that fit your type. As a DS or SD personality type, I am task and people-oriented, determined, flexible, strong-willed, and sometimes an overachiever. To my detriment, I can be emotional at times, an overachiever, soft-spoken, and impatient, and sometimes complacent. For the most part, I agree with the assessment. SD types are considered a velvet brick, according to Carbonell. There are many ways of communicating. We do so from the time we are born. Listening is one way that we communicate. When we are listening, our mouths are closed and our ears are open, and we are taking in information, inhaling. We are also acknowledging the talker in a way that invites the communication to continue. Listening is not a natural event, but one that comes with practice and focus. Listening is a choice that we must make in order to be effective communicators. When we choose not to listen, we choose not to communicate. In Bridges Not Walls, Stewart gives us two very important types of listening. The first is empathetic. Empathetic listening enables you to understand the other person thoroughly and fully. Empathetic listening is broken down into three main parts: focusing, encouraging, and reflecting. The second type of listening is dialogic, which takes the step of empathetic listening a little further. Rather than focusing mainly on what the other person is thinking and feeling, it helps the communicator's conversation by building meanings together. So when dialogic listening works well, everybody understands each other, and the people involved co-create new understandings that go beyond the individuals. It is so important to be an active listener. The starting place for effective communication is effective listening. Active listening is listening with all of one's senses. It's listening with one's eyes as well as one's ears. Only 8% of communication is related to content. The rest pertains to body language and tone of voice. Another way of communicating is exhaling. When we exhale, we are expressing and disclosing or conveying information. This is important to keep communication flowing and understanding, and also interesting. Messages and meta messages. The object of communication is to send and receive messages. We send messages verbally and non-verbally. The message is the meaning of the words and sentences spoken, while the meta message is the meaning that is not said directly, such as the way something is said or who is saying it. We have to be careful how we deliver because it's not always what you say, but how you say it. In order to understand the message and meta messages that is really being relayed, we must meta communicate, which is simply to talk about ways of talking. When we add these three together, we can truly enlarge our conversation and become more effective communicators. There are many barriers to communication that we must overcome. The first is we must overcome the flat brain syndrome as described by Peterson in Why Don't We Listen Better? The second is improper self-disclosure. Sometimes we are afraid of who we are and we do not self-disclose well. We have to learn that when we self-disclose, we are revealing information about ourselves that begins relationships and deepens relationships by sharing feelings, reactions, and personal information. There are many benefits to self-disclosure. One is it improves the quality of relationships. It allows you to validate your perception of reality. It increases your self-awareness and clarifies your understanding of yourself. And it's a freeing experience. Also, when we self-disclose, we are managing stress and adversity. Another barrier to communication is some communicators are not self-accepting. You have to be self-accepting in order to communicate effectively. Another barrier to communication is the fake listener, when you're pretending to listen but not really listening. And finally, being unfocused. My communication after. I've learned that being an effective communicator is the only way that I will hear others and be heard. I've also learned the art of asking questions. Asking questions keeps the conversations focused and flowing, which also gives me and my fellow communicator the satisfaction of knowing that the conversation was worthwhile and effective. I've learned to build bridges and tear down walls by removing biased views and opinions and giving people a chance to just vent without rebuttal or judgment. I've learned to take mental notes and use empathetic listening skills when someone is speaking to me, or as Burley Allen put it, to listen with my heart and not just with my head. I've also learned to keep an open mind and heart and listen for new ideas of the speaker's message. In conclusion, when we learn to communicate effectively, we learn to live. We begin to see ourselves and others differently. Communication is a skill we learn through our life, but in order to make an impact, we have to pray and practice to enhance it. In order to heal others, we have to know and accept who we are and be willing to share with others what God has given us. I'm thankful to have had this opportunity to enhance a God-given skill. Now that I'm on the road to become a more effective listener at a level 1 at all times, I will be a better wife, mother, sister, daughter, and friend to all that I encounter. References.